With funeral home rules due for an update, there's a push for online prices. Federal regulations that took effect 35 years ago don't require them a disadvantage for people who are shopping when they're most vulnerable. Shoppers routinely use the internet to compare prices, whether for appliances, cars, or hotel rooms. But online price consumer advocates are hoping that may finally change because federal regulators are scheduled to take a fresh look this year at a rule that governs how funeral homes share information with the public. Advocates are we are building a consumer coalition to promote the change, said Steve Brobeck, senior fellow with the Consumer Federation of America. The Federation and allies like the Funeral Consumers Alliance, a nonprofit group that promotes price transparency, argue that the current rule is woefully inadequate for the internet era. The Federal Trade the typical cost of a traditional funeral, including viewing of the body and burial, was about $7,400 in 2017, according to the National Funeral Directors Association, a trade group. A Funeral with Scott Gilligan, General Counsel with the Funeral Directors Association, said about 20% of its members generally those in larger, competitive markets who posted prices online, but the association has not seen major demand for it from consumers. The group's research, the Federal Trade Commission typically strives to re-evaluate rules every 10 years, said Patty Poss, an attorney in the Commission's Consumer Protection Bureau. The last review of the 10-year review timeline isn't mandated, however, and the Commission may adjust it, Ms. Poss said. The five-member still, a review of the funeral rule in 2019 has been scheduled for several years, Ms. Poss said, and is supposed to happen sometime this year. She was unable to. The Commission typically seeks public comments to help determine if a rule remains relevant, and whether any changes are warranted. One factor Joshua Slocum, Executive Director of the Funeral Consumers Alliance, said the rule sorely needed updating. The Alliance, Mr. Slocum said posting prices online would make enforcement of the rule far easier, since regulators are able to visit just a small fraction of the country's funeral homes to check compliance. The Commission enforces the funeral rule, in part, with undercover inspections of funeral homes. Last year, an analysis of 200 funeral homes last year by the Funeral Consumers Alliance found just 16% with websites included their full price lists online, although about a fourth posted some information, such as packaged services. More recently, research by the Alliance and other groups found that online pricing disclosure was spotty even in California, the only state that requires funeral homes with websites to include pricing information online or to list services and note that prices are available upon request. Here are some questions and answers about funeral services. What happens if a funeral home fails to properly disclose its prices? The Federal Trade Commission can seek. But first time is there anywhere to compare funeral prices online? Commercial websites like Parting.com and a newer entrant, Funeralocity.com, offer funeral home searches and pricing information. Ed Michael Reggie, founder of Funeralocity, said the site let shoppers search prices at funeral homes in 100 major markets and awarded excellent status to funeral homes that met its standards and fully disclosed prices. Funeralocity, consumer advocates say they generally support wider availability of information online but caution that third-party websites may have financial incentives to promote one funeral home over another. Mr. Slocum, how can I manage the cost of a funeral? The Trade Commission to gather information in advance, if possible, and to compare prices from at least 2 funeral homes. It notes that for holding down costs, like buying a coffin online and avoiding funeral packages that offer discounted coffins, since the funeral home may make up the difference by charging more for other services.
Raindrop, drop top smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.